people have been robbed of their birthright to land, liberty and peace by a form of government founded on injustice and inequality, that our country will never be prosperous or free until all our people live in brotherhood, enjoying equal rights and opportunities that only a democratic state, based on the will of all the people, can secure to all their birthright without distinction of color, race, sex, or belief. And that therefore we, the people of South Africa, black and white together, equals, countrymen and brothers, adopt this Freedom Charter, and that we pledge ourselves to strive together, sparing neither strength nor courage, until the democratic changes here set out have been won. That is why we are here today. And we're very, very thankful that we are here today. We're thankful to the Minister of Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, and his department for organizing this event, the Director General, Mr. Vusi Mkhize. Thank you very, very much for that. We are also very, very thankful to Mr. Nick Walpe, the CEO of the Lillies Trust, for hosting us here today. Thank you very much. You are recognized. We are also very thankful to the interim CEO of the South African Heritage Resource Agency, who will be explaining a little bit more around the very special purpose that brings us here today, and will be handing over some very, very special certificates. Thank you to you, sir. We are also honored and thankful for the international support that we've received, something that has characterized the struggle that was encapsulated in the Freedom Charter, especially the very, very powerful solidarity movements that stood by us during difficult times. So we're very, very thankful that we're joined here by the Ambassador of Norway, also the representatives of the European Union. Thank you very, very much for supporting us. We're also very thankful that we have with us members of the academic community, and in particular the history community, some of whom have also made very, very valuable contributions to the work of the ANC Archives Committee. Thank you very much to yourselves. Now, protocol is always a very, very difficult and touchy thing. I've learned in my many years in government that it's a very, very good way to make enemies. Now, South Africans, being the prudent people that they are, like to take out insurance in the form of a horrible phrase which I detest, called all protocol observed. I'm not going to use that. I will protocol you as I observe you throughout the course of the proceedings. Anyone who has been omitted, I'm sure, do not despair. You will be recognized and acknowledged before the end of the program. But with those few introductory remarks, I would now ask that we all rise, first for the singing of the anthem of the African Union, and secondly, our national anthem. May we all please rise, first for the African Union's national anthem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. May we please be seated. Next on the program, we have, as the old saying goes, an image or a picture is worth 1,000 words. So the Lillies Leaf Trust have been asked to do a short video clip on the Freedom Charter, which we are going to ask our technicians to play now after they have just quickly come on stage to move this podium to the side so that we can all see what's on the screen.
In 1953, the ANC leader in the Cape, Professor Z.K. Matthews, proposed convening a Congress of the People, irrespective of race, color, or affiliation, to compile a Freedom Charter. The idea was revolutionary. It would be a truly national and fully representative gathering, which would draw up a genuinely democratic political charter.
Volunteers throughout the country went as much as possible, house to house, factory to factory, trade union to trade union, collecting demands on anything, pieces of paper, back of cigarette boxes, anything. And it was the collection of all these thousands of pieces of paper that volunteers throughout the country had collected.
From Stellenbosch, Worcester, Paarl, everywhere, Kraaifontein, I remember, big and small meetings, and convene these meetings and say to them, there is going to be a Freedom Charter, and we would like you to put the demands into the Charter, whatever you feel is close to your heart and what you need.
The Congress of the People was held in 1955 in Kliptown, Soweto, and it threw down an ideological gauntlet to the apartheid government.
He said, when the Freedom Charter is realized, then we will have freedom in South Africa.
It certainly remains just about the most powerful document that the Congress movement has produced in its history, in my view.
We, the people of South Africa, declare for all our country and the world to know that South Africa belongs to all living black and white, and that no government can justly take authority unless it is based on the will of all the people.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the Lillies Leaf Trust for that very powerful, succinct encapsulation of the Congress of the People and the Freedom Charter that emerged from that historic gathering. It now gives me great pleasure to call forward on stage to speak, to welcome you, to explain the purpose of the day, and also to give an address. The Minister of Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa.
Good morning, everyone. Goeiemorgen. Thank you very much, our Program Director, Deputy Minister Ned, and on our behalf, he has acknowledged everybody here. I also acknowledge everyone who's here, and we are pleased that you could make it. Maybe from the beginning, let me say that an emergency robbed us of having the President today, President of the Republic, and many other leaders who were supposed to be here with us made apologies, particularly because this coincides with the memorial service of our late Uncle Billy Modise, whose memorial service is taking place right now. Now, this year, 2018, marks this 63rd anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter at that very Congress of the People we have just seen here on the 26th of June, 1955. This is the task of all revolutionary forces of our country to observe this anniversary, and all peace-loving and democratic-loving people, in order for us to reflect on the progress that we've made. In December 1953, the ANC held its annual national conference, Ukomani, which is Queenstown. A historic resolution was then taken to develop a policy document that will reflect the aspirations of South Africans from all walks of life. And in 1955, the Congress of the People was convened, which adopted the Freedom Charter. But today, 63 years later, we have been celebrating and commemorating this very important milestone in our history, the Freedom Charter. But I'm pleased to say that this year we're celebrating it under a different circumstance, and that is that the Freedom Charter, the two copies have been authenticated by the South African Heritage Resources Agency because they were the two remaining authentic documents, as it was claimed by Lillies and the National Archives, but we had to go through a process of authentifying them. So they are now authenticated. They are the documents which are now going to be in the hands of Lillies Farm and the National Archives. They are going to protect, conserve them for posterity, so that the people know that this thing happened. And for us, it gives us pleasure to have that kind of a situation, because our next step now will be taking it to the level of UNESCO, because we would want to see the Freedom Charter getting at that level, because as we were saying earlier on, talking to Mzwandile Mbeje, that this is a lodestar policy of body politic in South Africa. And as the preamble of the Freedom Charter says, that we, the people of South Africa, declare for all our country and the world to know that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. And we're saying that even today, black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. 63 years later, we celebrate the unity of the people of South Africa, and the prescripts of the Freedom Charter find expression in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. As I've just read the preamble of the Freedom Charter, let me proceed to read the preamble of the Constitution, and you'll see what we're talking about. It reads, and I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of the past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity." With that preamble, it can be seen that the Constitution has its foundation in the Freedom Charter. Let us recognize that under the ANC government, indeed, the people govern. We have held democratic elections every 5 years. Every South African has the right to elect a government of his or her own. And it put through the prescript of the Freedom Charter that no one can claim authority. No government can claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. And the Freedom Charter has different clauses, which as we go into our democracy, this very nascent democracy we are having in South Africa, it helps us to reflect back and look at the path traversed thus far. One of the clauses of the Freedom Charter is the people shall govern. People's power has its roots in the manner in which leaders are elected in society under the Constitution. We owe the progress and achievements we take for granted today, to those who came before us, they had the courage to take on the might of the oppressive state and forge the founding of our democratic dispensation. Today, Parliament has been totally transformed. We have the highest number of women members of Parliament today, and our democracy is a constitutional democracy, no longer a parliamentary democracy as it happened in the past. The other one, all national groups shall have equal rights. After 24 years of ANC government, we can declare unequivocally that South Africans have equal rights, which are entrenched in the Constitution. It is our wish that we deepen these rights and the access of our people to courts, which is still a challenge to a certain degree, the institutions of state, schools, hospitals, and other public facilities. The government will ensure that, as people vowed in 1955, that we'll fight for these freedoms until we achieve them, we'll continue to do what we should for people to achieve their freedoms. And one of the clauses, the people shall share in the country's wealth. South Africa is a much better place and different at that today than it was before 1994. The overwhelming majority of our people live in conditions which are vastly different from what it was even 10 years ago. More people have access to housing, better and more equal access to basic services. More households have been electrified. There have been enormous advances in healthcare and education, and economic opportunities have been opened to the people. However, the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality persist, and the task of the government in the second phase of the democratic transition is that of radical socio-economic transformation. This represents a fundamental break with the ownership patterns of the past and the putting in place of a South Africa that belongs to all who live in it. The vast mineral wealth of our country, which lies beneath the soil, has been transferred to the ownership of the state on behalf of the people as per the provisions of the Freedom Charter, if you understand the essence of the MPRDA. However, this is not translated to equal and full benefit of all South Africans. The government commits itself to continue working with our people to ensure that there is entrenched benefit from this ownership. Banking has become much more accessible to the majority of South Africans, but the excessive bank charges and fees mean that many people still cannot afford bank services. The government is moving ahead with our efforts to establish a bank directly linked and administered by the post office, which is the post bank. The other clause relate to the land. This is what is a topical issue today. Land has been at the heart of the historic injustice of the people. The majority of our people can mainly trace their suffering and deprivation back to the land dispossession period. The government has restored nearly 3.2 million hectares of land where people have chosen to receive financial compensation. Government has paid out more than 20 billion between 1995 and 2014. Altogether, nearly 1.8 million claimants have benefited from this program during this period. However, we are deeply concerned about the pace of land redistribution. That is why the governing party took a resolution in December in its national conference to fast-track the process of land redistribution to our people. The other has to clause is about all shall be equal before the law. A key cornerstone of any democracy is an effective, independent, impartial and accessible justice system. We must remain steadfast in our efforts to protect the separation of powers between the executive, legislature and the judiciary. We can boldly state that laws which discriminate on the basis of race, of gender, and other prohibited grounds have been removed. We can also say that equality before the law and the justice system can be unduly affected by economic status as well as the attitudes of those who interpret the law. The transformation of the judiciary remains a priority for our government, but we can say that our judiciary has represented the will of the people as a whole in South Africa, with those few areas of access based on their financial status. All shall enjoy equal human rights. South Africa is steadily emerging from a history of injustice, repression, and dehumanizing of the majority of our people. The Freedom Charter emboldened the drafters of the Constitution to ensure that the rights of the people in South Africa are set out in the Bill of Rights and entrenched in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Our government has always put human rights above any other consideration and calls upon the state to continue to respect and protect, promote, and fulfill the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Our Bill of Rights, which is justifiable, enjoins the state to implement measures to promote dignity, freedom of security and the person, equality, freedom of religion, belief and opinion, freedom of expression, assembly, demonstration and picketing, and freedom of association. The Constitution has created various institutions to support democracy, such as Human Rights Commission, Commission for Gender Equality, Public Protector, Auditor General, Independent Electoral Commission, and the Commission for Promotion and Protection of Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities. The Constitution empowers government to take measures to protect or advance those people or groups of people who have been discriminated against under apartheid. The other clause is about security. There shall be work and security. The right of workers to form and belong to trade unions is enshrined in the Constitution. The government has put in place a range of laws such as Labor Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Employment Equity Act, and other mechanisms to protect workers' rights and to bring about equality in the workplace. We are concerned that the transformation of the workplace is not taking place fast enough. Semi-skilled and unskilled workers in South Africa remain highly vulnerable to exploitation, and we urge all trade unions to ensure that no worker is left unorganized at factory floor, shops, domestic work, farms, and and on the mines. An unorganized worker is an exploited worker. The doors of learning and culture shall be opened. Education continues to be our #1 priority as government, as we call it, the apex priority amongst the priorities government has. The government has made great strides in ensuring that education and training is available to all in addressing the injustices of the past, focusing on reversing the systemic impact of apartheid education. We have put in place comprehensive, integrated education system. You would recall that we had in the past about 17 education systems in South Africa. We have a comprehensive and integrated one education system as we speak. South Africa spends about 5% of its GDP on basic education and 1.4% on higher education. This is showing significant results. Preschool education has expanded massively. There's gender parity in school enrollment, and we are doing really well in terms of the matric pass rate. We congratulate all the time, as we have seen, the students who pass their matric, because it put them in a better space in the working world. However, we also have challenges at escalating cost of tertiary education. That is why government decided to intervene in ensuring that we closely come to the realization of the Freedom Charter of free education. There shall be houses, security and comfort. The government can certainly celebrate the fact that, and the people of South Africa, in the past 20 years, we have made, in fact 24 years, we have made unprecedented progress in delivering basic services to our people, whether it's water, it's electricity, sanitation, refuse removers to millions who were denied these services by apartheid and colonial regimes. Local government has been at the forefront of these tremendous achievements. Despite this, the governance of many of our municipalities is still a challenge and a cause for concern. Local government is the sphere of government that is closest to our people. That is why Culture has adopted programs like Back to Basics to get the basics right first and foremost at that level. And getting back to basics means providing these services in a professional and caring manner that recognizes the human dignity of each resident. We are here to serve the people. The people are not here to serve us as their government. We should continue to build caring communities so that our people receive their basic needs. The other clause talks about peace. There shall be peace and friendship. In his address to the first Congress of our sister movement, the sister movement of the governing party, the MPLA in Luanda, Angola, 1977, the late president of the ANC, O.R. Tambo, said this, and I quote, "We seek to live in peace with our neighbors and the peoples of the world in conditions of equality, mutual respect, and equal advantage," close quote. We are proud, we as South Africa are proud members of SADC, the South African Union, the United Nations, Socialist International, and many other international organizations. We believe that there can be no development without peace. South Africa has thus, at the request of the AU and United Nations, committed many young men and women in peacekeeping missions on the continent. Our government will continue to pledge our ongoing solidarity with the people who are oppressed in their countries, be they Palestinians, be they Cubans, be they the Sahrawis. We confirm that our liberation as South Africa came about as a result of us focusing on the essence of the Freedom Charter, which proclaimed that there shall be peace, security, and freedom in the whole world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much, Minister Mthethwa, for welcoming us, for explaining the purpose of the day, and I think giving a very, very powerful account of how collectively we of South Africans have indeed stood side by side and worked to realize that powerful vision set out 63 years ago in the Freedom Charter, how it's been embedded, encapsulated in our Constitution, in the many programs of government, in the many efforts of society working together to change the lives of our people. But you've also reminded us that that road is far from over, that there are some very, very serious, very pressing, outstanding matters, elements of that vision of the Freedom Charter which we have not fully realized, and which is incumbent upon all of us to stand together and to work, to redouble our efforts to make sure that we attend to those matters. And that ultimately, whilst we're here on a very happy occasion where the Freedom Charter has been authenticated through certificate, but I think Minister Mthethwa has reminded us that the most powerful authentication of the Freedom Charter will be our collective efforts to realize its vision. And it just underscores the importance of us saying, as the Charter says, these freedoms we will fight for side by side throughout our lives until we have won our liberty. Now, as we march forward in that struggle, it's always important to draw inspiration from the past, to learn the lessons of the past. And therefore, I would just want to welcome the debate that is currently taking place around the teaching of history in our schools. I think it's a very important and necessary debate. But also the very important work done by archivists, because the archivists, in a sense, preserve that historical evidence, that material that can inform the teaching of history. So we thank all of the archivists who are here today, and without prioritizing one over the other, I do want to also pay special tribute to the ANC Archives Unit, which is headed by Ms. Baleka Mbete, known better to most of you as Madam Speaker. She's the chair of that committee. There's also very, very dedicated archival staff, headed by none other than Mr. Zwelile Mbonelo here, who continue to take care of the material of the ANC on a day-to-day basis. So we want to thank you and acknowledge your good work, but also the work done by our National Archive. And I think it's an area that really, as a nation, we should be a lot more conscious about. We should be a lot more concerned about preserving that important archival heritage. Also thank Lillies for their archival efforts. Earlier when we arrived, there was but a small selection of the archival material. I was feasting my eyes there, and I was pointing out to the staff members of Lillies that vinyl version of King Kong that I in fact have, I proudly proclaimed. I said that copy of the South African treason trial by Lionel Foreman and Solid Sachs, that I also have. But then they looked at me and said, flipping over the cover, but do you have the copy that's signed by all of the treason trialists? I had to walk away. But I did warn them that they should take very good care of it, otherwise I'm going to be accused number one. So with that, it then gives me great pleasure to call to the stage the interim CEO of the South African Heritage Resource Agency, Mr. Thomas Hokolo, to come and hand over the certificates of authentication. I'm going to call first the Director General of the Department of Arts and Culture, Mr. Vusi Mkhize, to come forward and receive the first certificate on behalf of the department and government. you very, very much. Can I then call to the front Mr. Nick Walpe on behalf of the CEO of the Lillies Leaf Trust, who will also, after receiving the certificate, speak on behalf of the trust.
MC, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to this very auspicious occasion. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about how Lillies Leaf believes that the Freedom Charter came alive here. We've heard about the importance, the significance of what this document means. I think we also need to acknowledge and recognize that on one hand, we are failing to live up to the preamble of the Freedom Charter. Unfortunately, the issue of race has taken a nasty turn in this country. And we need to understand why, given that we have such an important document that is written by the people of South Africa and has, for many years, laid in the shadows of our Constitution, even though, as the Minister made reference to and quoted, how the preamble to our Constitution is predicated on the basis of our Freedom Charter. And I'd just like to start by reading a quote. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And I'm sure you're all aware that is Martin Luther King. But I believe it is very pertinent and relevant to today, to Lillies Leaf, and what our Freedom Charter symbolizes. And I like to encapsulate that meaning in a story of one of the exhibits here. The 10-year-old snitch, who one day was playing here with the Goldreich children and noticed something which he thought was extremely unusual and out of kilt. He noticed white men and black men shaking hands and talking to one another. He went home, informed his parents, and he went to the local police station, and they told him, the next time you're at Lillies Leaf, write down the number plate of all the vehicles parked here. But why is that story so important? Because it goes to the essence of the Freedom Charter in terms of South Africa belonging to all who live in it. They treated each other not because of anything other than their content. The character defined how they were interacting here, how they were living the dream of the Freedom Charter, how the Freedom Charter and those very words that were articulated in the preamble came alive. And I think the fact that they have been declared specific objects is a start to ensure that we're able to ensure that the document becomes a living document again for all South Africans. I was concerned several years ago when I handed over one of the Freedom Charters, one of the commemorative Freedom Charters, to the Constitutional Court. And I thought that they would put that document up next to the Magna Carta, and they refused. And the basis upon which they refused, they said it was a political document. This is not a political document. This was a document written by the people for the people of South Africa. As Governor Mbeki said, it was our moral compass, our moral guiding principles as to what we wanted to achieve in South Africa today. And Minister, if I could make a request, please try and get the Constitutional Court to put up a copy of the Freedom Charter next to the Magna Carta, because I think it's a gross miscarriage of justice that they have the Magna Carta, but not the Freedom Charter, upon which, again, I reiterate, you said our Constitution is predicated on. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nick Walpe. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that then brings us very close to the end of a wonderful and a very special program. It then gives me great pleasure to again invite to the stage the acting CEO of the South African Heritage Resource Agency, Mr. Thomas Hokolo, to just come and do a very short vote of thanks. So.
Thank you. Good morning all. In my language from Limpopo, Thobela. I deem it a great honor and a privilege on such a successful, event and memorable occasion. First of all, I would like to thank the All God Mighty for making this event a success. Also to thank the Honorable Minister for his guidance, support and leadership. Also the DG and as well the Deputy Minister of the Department of Arts and Culture, that they've assisted us in making sure that the proper consultations take place. They've assisted us in making sure that the proper resources are available in making this event a success. I'd also like to thank the ANC, the National Archive, the Archives Unit of the ANC, for having supported us as well, providing the researches. I know we had endless meetings in making sure that we get to this particular day. Equally important to thank the National Archives Unit from the Department of Arts and Culture, as it has already said. But what is important for me as well to say thank you for is my wonderful team from South African Heritage Resources Agency. We spend, tireless time, a lot of energy in researching. And it is good that our efforts and research has brought us to this particular occasion. And I cannot thank you enough. And I say, please continue with the hard work that you are indeed doing within serving the people of South Africa. Also, I'd like to thank the research unit at the University of Wits for also participating and assisting us with a lot of information. But greatly as well, when we issued a gazette for the public to comment on this particular process, I should not forget, and I mustn't forget, the contribution that was made by the communities in assisting us to making sure that we authenticate this particular process. It is not just sitting in the office and then authenticating it. It's quite a lot of consultation. And it would be injustice if I don't thank the community for their contribution to such a historic document. Also to thank you, those who braved the coldish weather to come here and participate in this event and really support us. As a CEO of a state-owned entity, I would like to also, urge and also thank our colleagues who are fellow CEOs in other various departments of government for living up to, the principles of the Freedom Charter, where they ensure that we maintain high level of governance, we maintain high level of processes where we ensure that we can prioritize service delivery within our communities. And it is a challenge to them as well that as we go forward, we can then use these positions of influence, the position of responsibility, the positions of accountability as CEOs, to drive the change that we need in this country, to drive the significant improvement of our people's lives, because that's what we are there for. And if we continue doing that, that will be a true demonstration of how we live up to this Freedom Charter. I thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, Deputy Minister. Good morning, colleagues. And I just need to make some few announcements. There is brunch that is... Okay, sorry, I'm Nomaza Dingayo. I'm the Chief Director for National Archives and Libraries, the National Archivist of South Africa, under the Department of Arts and Culture. The announcement is about brunch that is being served. We will kindly request that the first table where Minister is sitting will be allowed to go to the back. There is some food that is made available for us at the back. There are colleagues that will then guide the table. So this table will go first and come, and then we will get the next tables. And yes, there are 2 serving places, so you are welcome to have some food. Thank you so much.